Are you ready for pain? Are you ready for suffering? Then you're ready for Captain Freedom's workout.
If you'd like to be a contestant on The Running Man, send a self-addressed stamped envelope to ICS Talent Hunt, care of your local affiliate, and then go out and do something really despicable.
Brought to you by Carlson.
This is Phil Hilton.
And I hope we didn't confuse people listening right now to our show. Hello and welcome to another episode of Science Fiction Remnant. Yes, Science Fiction Remnant. And I am not a stalker. I am your host, Robert.
Okay.
How do I outside your window? I am your host, Chaos.
And down here in South, Florida, otherwise known as Australia, is recovering from the flu. Mad cardio scientist Ray.
Oh wow, you're on the point. You have the right amount of cells in there.
That's right, I did. Oh man, this movie is so quotable. I love Arnie movies. There's just no shortage.
Yes.
Oh my god.
So there is a question.
What have you guys been watching?
Sci-fi.
I have been, let me say this, in the Dragon Ball jail. And it's of my own making. Let me explain. This is one of those that I never really picked up, although I always have it in my everlasting list of things to watch. And I decided to, what the hell, let's watch it. You know how you have the rule, you watch 3 episodes. If it doesn't grab you, you let it go and move on to something else. Well, I am on episode 21 and it still have not grabbed me. The reason why I am not letting it go is
And he likes the movie, the live action.
It's funny enough, I was looking for the movie to watch and I couldn't find it anywhere. So
He should not be out. He should not be allowed in any Otaku Fest.
here's the thing. Here's the thing. The reason why I refuse to let it go is because everywhere you look and everyone I talk to has, say how Dragon Ball is like the best thing ever, right? So I refuse to think I'm the only one in this planet that doesn't find that show, somewhat attracting in other ways. So I'll continue watching. I'll keep you posted. If you want to know more about it, you want to reach out to us on our Discord channel, because I'll definitely be posting on the Dragon Ball forum we have in there. But I'll keep you posted and see if, what episode does it actually grab me. But I'm in episode 21 and I haven't seen anything yet. So
not only that, but like if you join in the Discord, you guys can also add about an anime that it's not in the list, because it's about all animes you like, So you can get yours and we can talk about it too.
Yeah, definitely. Right? So that's basically all I've been watching, and that's why I said Dragon Ball Jail on my own making. I can let it go whenever I want to. I do have the key, but I refuse. I refuse.
You're a bit of a toxic burrito, you know that, Robert? An old taco.
Oh God. Yeah.
Oh God.
Okay, so who's next?
I had dad jokes. Well, I'm going to be really short because I suck. I've been so sick. I haven't watched anything. Your turn, Gio.
Oh man, I've been waiting on somebody's chapter.
I know. I've been sick. Come on, give me a break.
No, get better, bro. Get to work. Now you can feel like George R. Martin when they ask him, like, "Hey, are you gonna finish your book before you die?" He felt offended.
I kind of felt like death warmed up a few times this week. So
Well,
it's
no,
a reasonable
finish your book
question.
first. Finish your book first. Don't die, man.
I will. I will.
Oh man. Me, only playing Cyberpunk 2077. Just love going around and just messing up. Besides that, what can I say? I actually started watching the 3%. I don't know if you guys have watched that show on Netflix.
No.
It's kind of like a Hunger Game kind of thing where like they make people play these games up against each other, and only the 3% of them can make it and go. Kind of like uh, what happens in Alita Battle Angel. The people from below play Motor Ball and go like whatever champion it goes up.
Oh, like the Running Man then. Okay.
Same thing.
Except not.
They all end up in the closet, all crispy.
Yeah. End up in the burrito.
But that's it. But that's it. I haven't been watching anything else that is sci-fi really. I've been watching anime. That's it.
Cool.
The listeners can blame me for that one. I infected these two.
Okay, so I guess we are ready for the next segment. We are Science Fiction Remnant.
This is the Funny Science Fiction Podcast.
We are the Caribbean Science Fiction Network.
We are Monorats.
We are One Accord Level 2 Podcast.
This is Jesse from Sudden But Inevitable and Open Pike Night.
This is SciFi.
And if you're new to the show, This is Sci-Fi is a hashtag where we feature you. If you're a creator, if you're a fan, you have that one thing, that passion, sci-fi IP that either you created or you can't stop talking about it. You're already posting to social medias. So all you got to do is add This is Sci-Fi hashtag to the end of your post and let us discover your thing. A couple of, I always said a couple of things that could happen here is
We want to see your thing.
as a fan, you will either find people that like the thing that you're talking about and you gain new friends, you gain new conversations, or your passion will be enough to spark the interest and the curiosity of someone else that either has not watched it, did not know existed, or maybe refused to give it a chance. And because of that passion that you have for that one thing that you either created or that you love, the other person they have an incentive to at least check it out. And it's, I don't know about you guys, but the passion speaks louder than words. So I don't get tired talking about this because it's just so amazing to me. That the rivalry there is between Star Wars and Star Trek, for example. I seen it both ways though, where a Star Wars fan refused to acknowledge Star Trek, or Star Trek fan refuses to acknowledge Star Wars for X or Y reasons. Some of the reasons that I have here is like, Star Wars is fantasy, Star Trek is nerdy, filling the blank here, right?
Yeah.
But I seen where someone of either a fan of Star Trek or a fan of Star Wars posted something with all their passion that it was able to spark the interest of that other person that was maybe making fun of that IP to where now they are a fan. And that is fantastic. I find that to be so amazing because actually is a byproduct of the thing. It's a byproduct of the hashtag. Because the whole idea, if you follow this show long enough, is it came from within season 1, from my need or my want of having a location or hashtag to discuss sci-fi with a sci-fi community. Not necessarily, I already had the Star Trek community. I already have the Star Wars community. I already had the Battlestar Galactica community. But it's just a community where you can talk about everything. You can reference between IPs, because that's one of the great things about sci-fi is that sci-fi. We talked about this in many episodes. It's influence each other, and you find a lot of influences in different things. So it's kind of really cool to be able to talk to the overall sci-fi community about all those references that go outside a single IP. And that's the main reason why um, I wish that I could have created this thing. And what I just mentioned about the cross-pollination of IPs is a byproduct of that. And I'm loving it.
No gatekeeping.
Exactly. So anything that you guys want to add to that for this week?
Well, I was gonna mention him on my shoutouts, but I'll mention him now actually. That some of those friendships that you find like that is a good friendship with Anthony from the Terra Alpha, actually.
Yep.
Which he couldn't join us because he had to write for some awesome stuff. So you should also go and give it a watch and a listen. He actually is making a very good audio drama. We did actually an episode recently, something cool cooking up. You guys should go and check the audio and watch the video when it comes, so you can see personalities clashing on a D&D game.
Nice.
On stuff that he's working on. So yeah, but that is thanks to gateways like This Is Sci-Fi that we have find people like this, that we have a lot of common things. And this movie was actually suggested by him.
Yes.
Hey, I just want to ask the listeners, if you've listened to that episode where we were playing the role-playing game, jump on our Discord or leave a message if you're watching it on YouTube. Leave a message under the video, or just get some information to us somehow. You could leave it on our hotline and let us know what you thought of that episode, because it was the first time we've ever done that.
Yeah.
And it'd be really cool to find out, what you thought of it, if it worked, if you'd like more of such episodes, because we can lean into that if you found it interesting. So please let us know.
Yeah.
I have a couple of scientific-y things.
Cool.
Specifically using the word you guys came up with. So a new type of magnetism was discovered late last year. Did you hear about that?
Ooh, no.
No.
It's called altomagnetism. It's a new type of magnetism that was discovered in late 2024. It is a type of antiferromagnet, which means that the spin of its electrons are arranged in opposing directions, resulting in no net magnetization.
Ooh.
So basically, when you see ferrous ions aligned, they tend to align along the lines of the magnetic field. So if you have a magnetic field running, it'll all line up along the magnetic field. So that's how we actually know, looking at rocks, that the magnetic poles flip, because some rocks there in this direction, some rocks there that direction. It's like, okay. And actually, another really interesting thing that I was reading about is that the magnetic poles wander all over the joint. They're not fixed to a position. They wander around the North and South poles in various places. But they can also flip as well, which is really interesting. But this antiferromagnet, altomagnetism, in an antiferromagnet, they're saying that the findings could lead to the development of new magnetic memory devices with the potential to increase operation speeds of up to 1,000 times.
Wow. And this
So,
is
like,
why I love science.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so I've had that one in my back pocket for a couple of weeks, actually. I hadn't had an opportunity to tell you about it, but I thought I'd bring that one up.
Nice.
And of course, you all heard about the the asteroid discovered late last year that is 90 meters or 300 feet across, currently 27 million miles away, but there's a chance that in 7 years it will hit Earth and it could destroy a city. So yeah,
they call it
fun.
city killer. Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
What fun. But they're saying that's only based on early measurements, and once they get a few more readings, it may just be downgraded to a high. Yeah, it sure is. Well, we know that at least one or maybe two of the science fiction remnant team will survive because we're not all on the same side of the planet. So
Exactly. So you might still have a show.
yeah. Or you might have a monologue, or you might have a duology, but who knows? It mightn't be the three of us anymore.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, I just want to mention that this is the kind of stuff that you would see on the hashtag as well. It doesn't limit to science fiction. It sometimes and occasionally I would post scientific things like this that are kind of related to stuff that we've seen in sci-fi movies. So yeah, if you have something like that, you can go ahead and post it. And I'll definitely be reading it. You could also be part of it in another way. You could call our hotline at 1-305-563-6335, 6334. Oh my God. Let me repeat that again. 305-563-6334. And you can leave us your version of this is sci-fi hashtag on audio. And we can, if with your permission, we can play it on next episodes. Awesome. So I am going to move on to the next segment.
All right.
Shout out.
Well, guys, for these shoutouts I mentioned previously already, using this is sci-fi hashtag finding great connections, but also big announcements today because we actually made it to the marks of 500 subscribers. Warm welcome to BJ Olup, Michael Robinson, and Enlo Culto. Welcome. Started from the bottom over here, bros.
500 subscribers, man. That is a milestone. Thank you. And I just want to say to all of you out there who are listening to the show, especially those of you who have been around since season 1, a big heartfelt thank you. We really appreciate you guys being with us every week. And even whenever we don't have a show, being willing to just wait up for us until we come back on the air. So thank you so much. And thank you for all the subscribers on YouTube for season 2. That has been our new norm. We really appreciate you subscribing. And if you like the show, just tell your friends, tell your family. The more the merrier. Well, we can welcome you with open arms here. So we really appreciate and thank you for subscribing to our show.
Yes, absolutely, man. And yeah, man. So this will be all of the mentions for today. But I just want to remember everybody to go to the Discord. That is where we usually are more active. I mean, I even did the watch party today for this movie and all the cool stuff right on our Discord channel. So always go and check it out, and you have creative freedom of sharing with everybody what you like in there too. So that's like our little corner where we make sure that everybody feels at home. We can all be weird with freedom over there. And that's it for this shoutouts, man.
Nice. Okay, so we have another segment.
We do?
We do. The Alita Army News.
Oh, of course it would have to be that, wouldn't it? So this week, I mean, it was yesterday, so I still remember.
Nice.
Let me just share this slowly. There we go. Okay. So yesterday we had episode 252 of Radio Chaos on the Alita Army channel. And the question that was asked was, what would your life be like if there was no Alita Battle Angel and no Alita Army? There was some very emotional responses to this because of the core group of influencers within the Alita Army, including yours truly. We spent a lot of time on
How
this.
dare you even think
my
about
week,
this?
The major parts of my week are the Alita Army and Science Fiction Remnant. So, these are the two things that I do every week when I can. I mean, obviously, if I'm too sick, I can't, but or if I'm not home. But we had some heartfelt discussions about, what would be missing out of your life, friends that you wouldn't have made, fun that you wouldn't have had. Just there was so many people giving their, heartfelt opinions about why their lives wouldn't be as good if there was no that movie had never come to be, and the fandom that grew up around it. So it was an interesting discussion. So I highly recommend that one. It was episode 252. Just the most recently released live stream. Would be a live stream recording now in the Alita Army channel on YouTube. So if you're at all interested in Alita Battle Angel, check that out.
Nice. Yeah,
Ancient cyber lolly.
it is a real good question, and of course we're talking about Alita here, but it extends to any IP that you have passion for. Kind of like going back to this is sci-fi. What would happen if that passion is gone? That one thing that you have passionate about is gone. There would be a big, huge hole in your life. So, yeah,
Bro,
that's a good.
don't go further. Don't go further. A great example is Berserk. Kentaro Miura died, and everybody thought, oh, it's over. And it's not over. Apparently, somebody rich enough paid a good studio to make a continuation to the anime.
Ah.
And apparently, it's gonna be good. It's one of the best animes that is coming there.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, like, when fans get united, the power of people when they get united is big.
Yes. Definitely.
And it's always sad when creators, are aging, and you're a little bit concerned about them dropping off the perch before they finish their masterwork. In fact, I don't know that I've mentioned it on Science Fiction Remnant, but we've certainly mentioned it on Radio Chaos. But Yukito Kishiro, who draws and writes the manga, who has been doing it for 35 years now, I think. Yeah, 35 years. He's just announced that he's finishing up Mars Chronicles with the end of the next volume, and he's moving on to a new manga involving Alita. So the story's shifting. So we're getting something new this year. So that'll be interesting.
Nice. Okay, so I guess we're ready for this thing. And
are you sure? Are you sure that we're ready?
Well, I had a question that we discussed earlier, and for all of you out there who are not on Discord, you should. This is where all these conversations start. I have no idea how this sci-fi classic of the 80s did not make it into our list.
Until now.
I have no idea.
I wonder too.
And this is one of the questions from Captain Chaos. It's like, why is this not on our list?
Because it was overshadowed by Predator. They both came out in the same
Not
year.
only that, but it puts you to think into perspective all the greatest hits of sci-fi on 90s of action that Schwarzenegger is part of. Actually,
Yeah.
he's a great hero of sci-fi
So
in the 90s and late 80s too, early 2000s.
Well, the 70s saw a shift. 70s has some great sci-fi.
Yeah,
But it's a unique sci-fi that we don't I don't think we'll I wish we can come back to. And I've seen so many replications of people trying to do it.
yeah.
But
No, his flavor like 6 Day. The other one is Total Recall.
yeah, those are
You
80
know,
80 sci-fi is I want to say it's kind of unique. Because it is that new well, I should say newer style, different from the
is
70s.
is it is it the 6 Day? Is it the 6 days like late early 2000s?
I'm not sure, but I was kind of referring to the types of sci-fi and
Yeah.
how we have a type of sci-fi that I really loved in the 70s, and we shifted after Star Wars to the newer sci-fi, and this is where everything on the 80s kind of like uh I don't want to
it was a trend.
exactly. It was a trend.
I can confirm that. I can confirm that. Do you remember Batman Forever with Michael
No.
Keaton?
Yes.
You remember the punks in bikes and shit on the like low worlds? That's the same kind of vibe too, if you think about it, in Gotham back in the day. It was a fashion of the time to look at like wasteland bandits because they had the same exact thing, like people in motocross and stuff like that, making fires with bats, like punks.
Yeah. So
Remember?
yeah. So sci-fi is ever evolving, which is a good thing. I always
Yes.
say sci-fi is a thought experiment, and thought experiment never stops. And of course, if you see sci-fi for today, it's completely different, but it is an influence of everything that has come prior. You see evidence of 70s, of 80s, but I want to say, talking about this film in particular, the 80s sci-fi has its charm, and
Oh,
every time you watch this, obviously it's in a different era, so some of those sci-fis might include things that are not so quote unquote PC today, but it was a different era. It's a completely different era. um but regardless, it's had its charms. And that is actually what I took away from the rewatch today for this. It's like how much fun this thing was. Um, and this is something that I watched when it came out. Unfortunately, I did not get to watch it on the theaters. But we watched it when it first came out on was it VHS? For all of you
Yes.
Yeah.
for all of you out there who don't know what that is, it is a box that has a magnetic tape that will wind around a readable head inside of a device that will convert it into a video audio format on your TV. Um,
Robert, how many times the kids would shove something into the freaking VHS reader?
Uh,
oh my God.
have we got a video? You
Oh
guys
my
wouldn't get
god, that is so psychopathic. Hell no. Yeah, I
So
remember that.
And you got to remember that it was in glorious high definition 640 by 480
yes,
p.
yes.
Look,
P for
look,
pathetic.
when I had VHS as a kid, my first VHS was a movie from Batman, Batman Forever, I think. And then it was Lion King, the Disney, and then I had a documentary about crocodiles. my
As you
My
do.
my dad is terrified of crocodiles. Like he cannot see them in freaking pictures. He can't. And this documentary shows you videos like with 9-foot crocodiles with like people inside them, and I'm like, okay.
So I guess he should
This was
stay
my
away
first
from.
VHS.
I guess he should stay
Yeah.
away from.
It's like he only has to deal with alligators. I mean, they're perfect. Like,
Yeah, those was my first VHS experiences, bro. That I have, and I had the Spice Girls VHS, bro. Do you remember that movie?
You have to, because you have to, right?
That was a good movie, right? The Spice Girls, the movie.
Is it?
was it
It
a
was a
sci-fi?
great sci-fi film, man. I'm telling you.
Eh.
It must have had something to do with Dune if there was spice in it.
But before we continue, I really want to start off with the crawl of this film, and then we can move on to the plot. So, the plot of this, not the plot, the scroll, when you play this film for the first time and you see the scrolling letters coming up, it says by 2017, figures this is in the past already. It's amazing, right? When I watched this film, and Ray, you probably agree with me on this one.
Oh yeah.
We watched this film. I want to say 88. For me, I want to say is early 88. I don't know why I think January. I might be wrong here, but it is interesting how we watched this crawl, and I was like, wow. I was 17. And I'm looking at this. It's like, wow, 2017. That's the future. That
That's
is
so far away.
so far away.
Now it's so far away in the rear vision mirror. That's scary.
It's in the past. So by 2017, the world economy has collapsed. Food, natural resources, and oil are a short supply. A police state divided in paramilitary zones rule with an iron hand. Television is controlled by the state, and a sadistic game called Running Man has become the most popular in history. All art, music, and communications are censored. No dissent is tolerated, and yet a small resistance movement had managed to survive the underground. When high tech gladiators are not enough to suppress the people's yearning for freedom, more direct methods become necessary.
And I like the fact that what you're reading from, which is in our one of our boards for Notion, is actually edited better than the card that was shown on the screen, because there was a space missing after a comma.
Yeah.
The joys of old school sci-fi, where they just didn't bother checking things.
Yeah, they figure most people are not going to read this. Let's get to the movie.
Yeah.
We have Arnold.
Yeah, they're just waiting for Arnie to rock up and go, "I'll be back," which he does.
It's interesting because I think most people in the 80s, and this is my takeaway from the era. Whenever you go into a film for Arnold, you're already expecting that line. You know what line is it gonna say? It's kind of like
I'll be back.
It's kind of like a
Hey, here's a quiz for you. Don't look it up. Do you know how many of Arnie's movies he says "I'll be back" in?
And our audience will just pause us, go to Google, and then come back.
Yeah, they will, but I'm not letting you. Come on, what's your guess, Robert?
You know what? I can't even guess, because it seems to me like he says that in every film. There's some line. He might not say all the lines, but that was like a thing for me. It's like when I go into the film, it's like, okay, what line is he going to say now?
There was one, I can't remember which one it was, but there was one of his movies where he says, "I bet you were going to think I was going to say I'll be back, didn't you?"
What?
I think it might have been The Last Action Hero.
The next action
hero, the one that I mentioned at the pre-show.
Yeah, because he was fourth wall breaking the entire time.
Yeah.
That was 14, including 6 Terminator movies.
Wow. I'll be back.
So,
14 times.
Yeah, including Commando, Running Man, Twins, Last Action Hero, Expendables 2, all the Terminators. So yeah,
Nice.
he's getting a lot of mileage out of that line.
Confession: I never watched Expendables.
It was good. I liked it. It's not sci-fi, but I liked it.
All right.
So
Sci-fi Jason.
so what do we have? What is the plot?
Well, just before we jump into the plot, I was going to say this earlier, but we kind of wandered off the point.
Oh, okay.
But, well, this is an interesting bit of trivia. So 2 Arnie movies were released in 1987. It was a good year for Arnie. Predator, June 12th, 87, and The Running Man, November 13th, 87. Now, Predator was obviously the bigger movie, and that's probably why The Running Man didn't get top billing on our What Sci-Fis Do We Cover list. But the interesting thing is that Jesse Ventura co-stars in both of them with him.
Yes.
So it was the Arnie Jesse Ventura double billing kind of situation. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. I don't know if you guys did. Now, where's my plot? Here's my plot. And I apologize in advance, folks. My voice is a little croaky because flu. So I'm not going to sound quite as smooth as I normally do. In fact, I'm going to mute myself for a second and clear my throat before I start.
Yes.
And so while I mute myself and clear my throat, Robert clears his throat on air. Well done, Robert.
Yeah.
You know,
Jesse Ventura, the governor.
Yeah, the governor. You have to, like, I'm doing voiceover, okay?
Oh, right, you're voiceovering me. Right, okay, I get it. Jesus. Okay, they're dubbing me, folks.
I'll do the coughing sounds when he.
Thanks. I just don't want people to feel sick from the noises I'm making. They're disgusting. But anyway, by 2017, following a worldwide economic collapse and resource scarcity, the United States has become a totalitarian police state. Not much different from the moment, huh? Anyway, the government maintains control through propaganda, censoring unsanctioned art, music, and communications. The most popular TV show, The Running Man, is a state-controlled game show where incarcerated criminals can earn their freedom by surviving as runners against lethal stalkers. Captain Ben Richards is arrested after refusing orders to open fire on unarmed food rioters in Bakersfield, California. His fellow officers massacre the rioters, and Richards is framed for the incident, being dubbed the Butcher of Bakersfield. Oh, God, I'm really croaky. Excuse me a sec.
Oh, I forgot the
juice. Yeah, thank you. His fellow, I said that. 18 months later, Richard escapes from a prison labor camp with 2 resistance fighters, Harold Weiss and William Laughlin. Although they offer him a chance to join the resistance, Richard is only interested in survival. He travels to his brother's apartment only to find that Amber Mendez, a composer and of the state broadcaster ICS, now lives there, and his brother was taken away for re-education, which means, state prison. Richard forces Amber to help him bypass airport security. They're heading for Hawaii, but believing him to be the butcher, she alerts the authorities. After his arrest, Amber sees new coverage falsely claiming Richards killed people during the incident at the airport and begins to doubt his guilt. Meanwhile, the ruthless and narcissistic Damon Killian, host of The Running Man, recruits Richards, hoping to boost the show's stagnant ratings. He threatens to replace Richards with Laughlin and Weiss unless Richards agrees to participate. As The Running Man begins, Killian reneges on his offer and sends Richards, Weiss, and Laughlin by rocket sleds into the game to an abandoned part of Los Angeles divided into 4 quadrants. The group is stalked by Sub-Zero, a hockey-themed assassin who Richards kills. Sorry, thanks very much. God, I'm suffering today. I need a drink.
Robert, your sound effects are perfect, bro.
Don't make me laugh.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is what I call passion.
Oh God.
I'm dying here. I'm dying.
No, you sound sexy, bro. You sound husky. I like
do
it.
Bend over.
This is when you record voicemail. You wait until you record your voicemail.
Oh dear. Killian then dispatches 2 more stalkers, the chainsaw-wielding Buzzsaw and the electric shooting Dynamo, who also sings opera for some reason. Richards kills Buzzsaw with his own chainsaw, though Lachlan is fatally injured. Weiss, meanwhile, discovers the satellite uplink controlling government broadcast is inside the game zone and cracks the code for Amber to memorize before being killed by Dynamo. Thank you. Richards incapacitates Dynamo but spares his life to the audience's shock. When Killian secretly offers him a job as a stalker, Richard furiously declines.
Achoo.
My lungs are coming up. This is not good. Amber discovers the corpses of the show's past winners, realizing their victories were state propaganda, and Richards kills the flamethrower-wielding Fireball. The audience begins to cheer for Richards, while crowds outside place bets on his success. Richards and Amber are soon found by the Resistance, led by Mick Fleetwood, and taken to the command center.
Yeah, Luffy does that.
I'm dying. You don't do that to me. Jesus.
Oh my God.
I just had that right now, and I am such a psychopath that I would actually try to laugh on purpose, just to cut it out.
You are killing me. Stop it.
And after actually, this is the coughing attack.
If you're not watching this on YouTube, you have to.
I'm so red from coughing now. It's not funny.
Okay, we lost chaos now.
Oh, everybody's dying now.
Those are sympathy coffins, man.
Oh God.
Oh my God. Oh my God, bro. I'm terrible. I'm not going to heaven if there's a heaven.
I think we need to have some sort of like honey tea or something. I don't know.
Choose, bro. Choose, brother.
So,
It's good for the throat.
yeah, if you're not watching this on YouTube, you're missing out.
There you go, fella.
I'm covering my lungs up for this show. Don't you forget.
Yes.
Killian orders retired stalker Captain Freedom to face Richards, but he refuses unless he can fight him honorably without gimmicks. Instead, ICS edits existing footage to show
Captain
Freedom
who?
killing Richards and
Captain
Amber.
who?
Captain Freedom.
Captain Freedom.
Yeah, that was the quote. Oh God.
Are you ready for pain?
Ready for suffering.
I'm ready for pain.
Oh. Yeah, we're there.
Oh dear. Excuse me. Seeing this on TV, Richards realizes that the government must now ensure that they are not seen alive again. Using the satellite uplink codes, Mick airs an expose of Killian's and the government's lies, including the unedited Bakersfield footage. At the same time, Richards leads the resistance members in a takeover of ICS to prevent the network from disabling the broadcast. At ICS, the resistance battles the security forces. Dynamo attacks Amber, but she triggers the sprinkler system, electrocuting him. Richards then confronts Killian, forcing him into the rocket sled and sending him into the game zone, where the uncontrolled vehicle crashes and explodes, killing Killian. Killian. God, that's a bitch of a statement. as the audience and crowd celebrate Richards and Amber kiss, and as the broadcasting network goes offline. Roll credits and give me a drink. My throat is killing me.
Oh yeah, I like it.
Are you ready for pain?
Oh wow!
So yeah, it's quite the classic plot. The sort of 80s over the top hero kind of trope that was quite popular, and of course, it's still quite popular because it's just so much fun.
Don't you love how Arnold Schwarzenegger will say the tackiest like punchlines ever that you would expect? Like when the guy with fire got defeated, and he was like, he was a hot guy, huh? And I was like, what?
What about Buzzsaw?
Yeah.
It's like, where's Buzzsaw? Well, he had to split.
Yeah. And he runs up behind that guy when they're doing the prison break. He says, "Can I give you a lift?" Throws him off the edge.
It's so tacky, bro. Like when they're puns, you're like, oh my god, bro, he did it.
Oh yeah,
he
was well known for that.
Something that I gotta mention, only because you mentioned this at the beginning, and how this is basically Jesse Ventura and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And the same happened with the Predator. It's interesting, after Gio just mentioned, it just kind of dawned on me, they both ended up being governors. So Jesse Ventura is from Minnesota, and of course Arnold is from California.
Yeah,
the governor.
The governor.
Yeah, that guy is interesting, man.
It's really cool. I mean, they all found their own success in what they do. But
have you noticed that for like 90+% of the time, Arnie only plays heroes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you off the top of your head, no googling? I mean, out there you can Google, but these guys aren't allowed. Can you tell me
a villain? No.
The only 3 times that Arnie has ever played a villain.
Which ones?
We have covered one of them, but it's a bit iffy.
What is it?
T-800 in the original Terminator movie.
Oh yeah,
he was a villain.
Yeah, he was.
True.
Now I consider that the normal oh god, what's the name of the show? Get Your Ass to Mars.
Total Recall.
Total Recall, his original personality was evil.
Yes, he was a bad guy.
He was a bad guy.
True.
But for the main part of the movie, he was a good guy. So that one's a little bit iffy. But if you remember, he played Mr. Freeze in Batman and Robin.
Yes. My favorite Mr. Freeze.
True. Great role.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think one of the greatest live action roles played.
But if you look those only 3 times aside, he's always the hero. So interesting.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I guess we are free to start with the first question that we ask in the show. And the question that we normally ask in the show, if you're new, is how old were you when you watched this for the first time? And what was your very first impression? Not sure who wants to go first. I watched it when it basically came out, not on theaters. I think Gio, you watched it today.
Today for the first time.
So
seriously?
Wow. Yes, I didn't know about this movie, man.
Yeah,
there's a hole in your mind.
We'll be holding out on him.
It was good though.
So okay, so let's let Gio go first, and then we can move on to either me or Ray.
All right, all right. I mean, man, this movie to me, like, I see why it got overshadowed by Predator because Predator was a big hitter. But I think that this is a jewel on its own. I think it has a lot of influences that were taken from places like Hunger Games and things like that. When you look at it,
Well, the other way around. My wife did say the same thing. It's like, yeah, well, maybe Hunger Games kind of took some influences
totally.
this
Not
film.
only that, I made an observation when I was watching like the stage where the program takes place. You know what it reminded me of? Logan's Run, the circus.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
gave me total Logan's Run, the circus. And even though you see the aerobic dancers and shit, when you look at it objectively and you put away the allure of the pretty ladies, you're looking at like some kind of like orchestrated show that is trying to like just keep everybody there focused. You
Now,
know,
you with that comment, you're kind of agreeing with what I said earlier when about the sci-fi and how 70s sci-fi. It's unique, obviously, and I don't think we'll ever come back to it. I wish we can.
oh
Maybe
yeah,
not try to, but this is a perfect example what you mentioned of how it is influenced by
very much.
things coming prior to prior sci-fi.
Yeah, no, no, very much. And I mean, if you think about it, Robert, like even like having an underground society, it existed in Logan's Run too. There was an outside, so they had to escape. Same thing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of elements. It's not the same for sure, but there's a lot of elements that honor or tribute to that too.
So how old were you? I mean, not how old were you. What was your like when you watched it in the watch party today for the first time? But
Yeah,
when you, how can I compose this question? The feelings that you got when you watched this for the first time. There is a point in this question, but it's I'm not.
I think what he's riffing to is the cheese overload.
the cheese overload.
Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious. I loved it. Uh, like I loved in the main scene when he intrudes into the apartment, and then he ties her up and lifts up and like breaks the shit out of the floor. I was like, "Ooh, okay, this is like 50 Shades of Arnold now." Like they don't shy away about these jokes, and I think that's like the fun about it too. It's like it's a reflection of the time, and it can be a lot of good comedy too. Like just like all the punchlines that he gives, I think that's great comedy too. Because it's a very serious moment, shooting bullets and shit, and then he goes like, "Oh, he was a hot guy." Uh, I also liked the way that the characters were written because like I thought that the Captain Freedom was kind of like a sham, and actually he was the only warrior that wanted to fight him regardless of whoever he was, man to man,
No gimmicks, nothing
no
on,
gimmicks. Yeah,
hands to hands.
he was the only honest fight that he could have. I kind of that I like blood, so I kind of got disappointed that the villain, the main guy, dies when the rocket thing goes down instead of just being released into the game. That would have been cooler though.
Yeah.
Well, then they would have needed nice guys to chase him down and kill him, and the nice guys.
No, all the punks are in there.
Oh yeah, I suppose so.
It's kind of like kill by the sword, die by the sword ending.
Yeah.
But it was great though. It was great though. He had a good development. It sucked that his friends had to die.
Yeah.
And it was funny and ironic how oh my god, the lady
Mendez, Amber Mendez.
and no the actress, bro,
Maria Conchita.
Maria Conchita, how she was thrown back into the game.
Yeah.
So like she betrayed him, and then the people that she actually went and snitched to throw her into the pit too.
I think it had a redemptive quality. The reason
Yes.
why she was in there in the first place, and I think I'm kind of nice that they didn't play the card of like vengeance, like you got me here, but instead he was able to acknowledge, and help her out, because of the reason. Because that's
Yes,
typical
yes.
cliche. That's a typical cliche when it's like, okay, I got you put me in this situation, I'm gonna take my vengeance against you. But that's
Yes.
just my thought.
I agree. But I like the movie overall, man.
Awesome. Okay, so I guess it's between me and Ray. We're gonna face off and see who goes next. Who goes,
Well, I think I probably saw it after you, but not by much.
Okay.
You were saying you saw it early in '88,
Mm-hmm.
and I have this distinct recollection of my family used to have Christmas parties at our house every year back through the '80s, because my father would write it off as a business expense. He'd invite a certain number of business associates to the Christmas party, and this would be on Christmas Eve. And it was one of the 2 times a year I was allowed to get Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC. Back then it wasn't called KFC, it was called Kentucky Fried Chicken because they used 4 words. But we would get, the 50-piece box, the massive one.
Nice.
And there'd always be some left over for breakfast and sometimes lunch on Christmas Day, early lunch, because main lunch would be turkey and all the sides.
The muffin.
But I remember in '88, I'd actually borrowed this the night before, but I couldn't watch it because the only TV with a VCR attached to it in the house was in the main room where the party was, so I couldn't watch it on Christmas Eve. So I had to wait till Christmas Day, and I remember watching it after lunch on Christmas Day with still some cold KFC to munch on after lunch, sitting there and watching this movie and going, holy shit. Wow, the future's all in minor tones. The music's all in minors. How about that? and it's 2017 looks a bit rough. I don't know if I'll be able to handle it. But that was 8 years ago now, so time moves on.
Yeah, we forgot.
Obviously, an alternate
surprisingly,
reality.
we've made it. Surprisingly, we've made it.
We forgot how bad it was in 2017. Apparently.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, where's my flying cars and hoverboards, you bitches?
Yeah.
But to you by caution.
Oh wow.
Dude.
So
it is so weird when people have these dark visions of the future, and
was it one of you?
Was
it one of you that told me that this was a joke started on Idiocracy?
Yes, and he took off.
And there's a crossover, bro.
That's why Idiocracy is a documentary, and I am afraid for you wearing those.
I hated it until I tried it, bro.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Like people would hate the look, and then they try it. It's like, yeah, I gotta be wearing it.
You should try the rubber.
I don't know. I almost feel like I'm gonna lose brain cells, but I don't know.
I might catch you sleeping one day on your couch and then just put them on your feet and take a picture with you wearing mine. like we can have rubbers instead of Bernie's.
I'll just pop up the hill to the Australian Reptile Park and get a couple of baby crocodiles and send them over to you so you can put them on your feet.
Nice.
They're self-lacing.
I was gonna print for myself some Hermes wings to put it on my Crocs, so it looks cool.
Oh god.
So was that your first impression, Ray?
Yeah. So the first impression was pretty. I was pretty surprised by the movie. I hadn't seen it. It had next to no sort of profile at the cinema. I don't remember it coming to the cinema at all. And the budget was 27 million for the movie, which doesn't seem like that much for the amount they spend these days. But the box office, it says the United States box office was 38.1. It says the worldwide box office was 38.3 million. So I don't think it was shown overseas in cinemas much at all, by the sounds of things.
So I remember watching this. I was 17 years old, teenager.
Looking at Will Smith.
I want to say it was January, like I said earlier, but I'm not sure. For some reason, I have that in mind. I seen it many times after. This movie impressed me for a couple of reasons. One is the gore is actually implied, which is very interesting.
Were you back there like, it's not Jane Fonda, but it's cool.
It was interesting though, because although they didn't show you pure gore like many 80s movies do, and sci-fi films as well.
Chase in the crotch, even suggestively, is bloody.
The way that Sub-Zero died, for example, the way that Buzzsaw died, those are suggestive gore, and I remember that was I was very impressed because I was still grossed out, yet without technically the gore. I was grossed out.
It's the power of suggestiveness. I think it's more artful for media art, suggestiveness than main explicitly.
Yes.
Any crotch death will cause you pain, psychosomatic pain. It's just the way it works. It's like watching somebody get kicked in the balls. Any guy who sees somebody get kicked in the balls will feel. It's just one of those.
You gotta fear it. You gotta feel the ghost of that pain.
I was really impressed with that because I don't think I ever seen anything like that prior, especially in the 80s. They did not shy away from the gore. It was practical effects, which they're classic now. So everybody seemed to be doing the practical effects gore. Obviously, if you watch horror, there's a lot more there. Horror from the 80s. There's not as much in sci-fi, but there is, and whatever there was, they were very liberal with that the gore because it could be done. So I remember that was one of the things that impressed me the most, and how suggestive gore was without the gore, and I found that to be really interesting. It's like, wow, they're geniuses, right? Granted, I've seen this film so many times that it doesn't have the same effect that it did the first time that I watched. And so I could say the same for most of the sci-fi 80s gore fest that are there. But I don't know if you guys feel the same way. It seems like gore in sci-fi was kind of like a staple of the 80s. I'm not saying that it wasn't done like in 2000s and anything else, but it seemed to be more prevalent.
Well, not only that, but in cyberpunk as a genre alone, standalone, one of the main things with cyberpunk is the goriness, and basically it is because it's a way to communicate that we have become more unsensible as a race.
And that's why some sci-fi shows gore as a medium of storytelling. If you take, for example, The Running Man has kind of like the same premise as what the world of cyberpunk is, where in this world, humanity doesn't matter. People don't matter. Look at the very beginning of the film, where Ben Richards was told to kill 1,500 civilians on arms. That's kids, women, all people. They were just rioting for food. He refused to do it, but the government, his bosses, military, police, whatever they may be, order him to kill 15,000 people. rioting for food. They weren't killing anybody. So that right there shows you that they're using this as a medium of storytelling to let you know how grim this world that they're living in is, where humanity doesn't matter. And that's kind of like what cyberpunk does.
Not only that, do you notice turning point on the movie when they beat the big guy, the guy that looks like a Christmas tree. When
Dynamo was his name.
Dynamo. When he actually flips on the car and when he's about to kill it, he doesn't kill the guy and people are booing because he didn't kill the guy. So at that turning point, what the movie's telling you is these people don't even care about what team they're on. They just want to be in the winning team, and they don't have will of their own to really oppose the masses. So they just wanted blood at that point.
It is.
Yeah, it's the old thing of blood and circuses from ancient Rome, where basically they just have blood sports. It's just blood sports to placate the masses so they don't rise up and overthrow the corrupt government.
It is a scary reflection of society today, if you think about it, because if it's not happening to you, you're going to support it for entertaining value.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really sad that, obviously I'm an empath, so it's different for me. I feel for everybody, but it would be a completely different story if you look at those scenarios and you feel for the other person. But the mentality is, if it's not happening to you, it doesn't exist. It must be fake.
That's how humans are.
So that's another thing that really impressed me about the film. And the other thing is, as a teenager, and again, we're going back, this is a reflection of the times, plus hormones. They're real, boys and girls. There's about 3 scenes, I want to say, where there's the dancing girls. I remember rewinding those scenes more.
Those sections of the VCR tape were kind of worn down. There was like crackles on them and stuff.
And it wasn't something. I can't find the word. I want to say perverted because I can't find a better word. It wasn't nothing like that. It was
titillating.
It was like shock value. Does that make sense? I don't even know how to put it into words.
Shock value, because makes me feel like a shark can take a bite of their asses.
No, shock value. I was just enthralled. Kind of like what Ray just mentioned. That, of course, that doesn't, I don't remember playing on TV except for like maybe when I was a kid in kids shows, but that's a completely different story to tell. But it was just really shocking to me, and I couldn't look away. And I had to rewind and go back and rewind and go back and rewind. That's another thing of this film that I can take away from the very first time that I watched, is that I don't think, and I'm thinking right now, if there was anything else that had replicated this effect on me, and I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now.
James
Barbarella.
Well, yeah, but I don't think it was the same. It wasn't the same effect. It was a different effect altogether. Around the same thing.
Dildano.
That's so funny. I can't. It's interesting how I watch this film now, and it's so hilarious to me. And before it wasn't.
Very, very.
Can we get on that subject? Can we get real for a moment?
Mm-hmm.
There was no internet. There was no ready access to porn, basically. Kids these days, as soon as they get a smartphone, they can get on the internet, and if their phone isn't locked up from that stuff, they can find porn with a with a quick search.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, access to nude pictures is like incredibly easy in
Bro.
2025. But back in 1987, it was really tricky. Like you had to like collect things and hide them under your
Magazines.
seat and stuff like this, which I did because I was a teenager with a strong libido.
Bad boys. Back to the bone. Blah, 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 blah.
You know, anything you saw like this was titillating because you weren't desensitized, because there was no easy access to that stuff.
Yeah, and that explains it perfectly. You have a real good point there, because that's exactly how it was. It's not like I think it has been normalized, if that makes any sense today.
Let me a moment of silence here. Like, let me ask you guys. You know the feeling when the naked chick picture is loading and then somebody picks up the phone and it's loading?
Yeah. Yeah, know that one well.
So what I was going to say is it makes perfect sense, and it's sad in a way that today it's pretty much normalized to where you see women dressed the same way they were in this film, and it doesn't matter.
It's not just the way they're dressed, but it's also the way they're moving.
Yeah.
I mean, the dance is designed to be titillating.
Yes.
And back in those days, if you didn't have ready access to Penthouse or Playboy or something like that, you had no access to any of that stuff. Older brothers of friends were very useful back in the day, because they had that stuff and you could borrow / nick some of it. But the whole thing is that both the violence and the sexual content have been normalized these days. So people think nothing of the violence and nothing of the sexual content because it's so readily available.
Yeah. Now, I do recall that was kind of like a medium back in the 80s. If you watch shows like, let's just throw something out there, In Living Color, you know what I'm talking about. The fact of having dancers on a show, and I have a feeling that this is exactly what they were after on this film. Obviously to the extreme, because they kind of mixed different shows into one to create the Running Man. But you have shows like, for example, In Living Color, which I love.
It is usually an exaggerated version. Have you noticed?
Yes, it is. It is. So they have they actually coined the word "fly girls" for the show. But they had been shows or in the entertainment industry where, and I remember this back in the 80s in multiple different avenues, where that was kind of like a thing to attract viewers for entertaining value. And in this film, you could see how that get exaggerated, also to prove a point for entertainment value. So I think that was also a storytelling medium for this film to show you how society is. I mean, we have a lot of people in bars, watching the show. We have people in the streets betting, and we have people on the audience.
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Tron.
How so?
When you look at the society of Tron, the city, they behave the same way. They're just not shining lights.
Yeah.
It's like what they portray on the Matrix, the system, like cattle, everybody.
Do you know what movie harks back to this one quite heavily?
Which one?
Hunger Games.
Yes.
Yes.
My wife mentioned that when we were watching this film today.
Yeah, definitely. There's this game I haven't been able to play because I don't think that my computer runs it on my Xbox. but it's called Off Grid, and it's exactly this. Basically, it's like a Hunger Games competition, but people have been genetically modified so you don't die. So you got people with cybernetic parts, and it's just like a Royal Rumble fight, shooting and shit.
What was the name of the game?
All right, Off the Grid.
Off the Grid. Okay. So that's actually my first impression. I know I kind of mix it up to stuff that we see, but there's something that I want to mention before we move on, and I don't know if you guys are aware of this. The Running Man was a novel from Stephen King, and was it? I think it was Stephen King. But this what I'm trying to bring up is the fact that this movie took liberties where they departed from the original content. This is one of the few cases where departing from the original content doesn't hurt the IP.
Yes, it was from Stephen King's, by the way.
So I find that to be really interesting. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but there's The Running Man, I believe, is being filmed today. They're expecting release on November 2025. So obviously it's going to be new cast. And what I have heard so far, there's no trailers. I find it interesting that we're so close to, and we have no trailer. Unless you can find one, Ray, but I couldn't find a trailer of it. I did find like behind the scene footage of the filming and stuff like that, and the cast of the film. It is supposed to release in November, if there's no delays, obviously, November of this year. But the thing that I find interesting is that the directors and the writers of this, they decided that they were not going to take any liberties from the original source, and they're going to keep it true to the original source. So I am really interested to see how that film is going to turn out. The one thing I really do like about what I've seen so far is that the big, huge references to the 80s. There's 80s cars, there's 80s clothing. Is as if the film was filmed in the 80s. Have you guys?
Oh, so they're going for that with the new one as well.
Yeah, they're going the full 80s on the new 2025 version.
It's really interesting because I was going to make a comment about sci-fi aesthetics during the decades. Now, 50s had a sort of shiny Jetsons aesthetic for their sci-fi, right? And that's over into the 60s a bit as well, or multicolor. Like the 50s was shiny metal sci-fi, right? With the sort of the big wings on the back of the cars and stuff like that they had in the 50s. And that sort of bled through into the sci-fi. And you can see that in Fallout series, both the TV series and the computer game series, that has that shiny future, retro future aesthetic, right? I call that the shiny future retro future aesthetic. And then the 60s sort of had more of a downplayed but more colorful sci-fi aesthetic. And then the late 60s, early 70s went for more of a hard science, less color, sort of everybody in jumpsuits kind of, or spandex kind of thing. And then Star Wars had its own sort of vibe, and Star Trek was sort of in that 60s vibe, the original Star Trek. And then 80s sci-fi and late 70s and 80s sci-fi, a lot of it was dystopian future. So, you look at things like Escape from New York and The Running Man, Soldier, and all those sorts of shows had that junkyard vibe, sci-fi junkyard vibe. and the Running Man has the sci-fi junkyard fight.
Soldier.
Yeah, Soldier. But you also get in this movie heavy 80s is going to last forever sci-fi vibe. Super cheese, 80s epaulets and big perms and the whole thing. They didn't even try and imagine a future that looked different. It was the 80s. You got the 80s in 2017. And I thought to myself, yeah, possibly. I mean, I know that trends in fashion are cyclical and things come back in. I don't know that the whole 80s would come back in lock, stock, and smoking epaulets, but I guess that's just what they went for because they didn't have a huge budget. But yeah, it was interesting how these sorts of sci-fi vibes travel through the decades and how they vary. What do you guys think about that idea?
I do agree, and I think I don't think I ever thought about that, but it does make sense. Fashion is cyclical, so it could have been possible for that fashion to return.
Yes, definitely.
But it didn't, obviously, because I still miss my big hair. That's one of the things.
Elements of it did. The whole thing doesn't rock back up. That
Exactly.
was scary.
Exactly.
Yeah, but like look at Cyberpunk back in the 80s, and it was underappreciated, and now it's dominating in all medias. Cyberpunk is something like very famous. A lot of games, Cyberpunk themes, a lot of animations and movies.
With Neuromancer, the birth of cyberpunk, it is basically a niche read.
Yeah.
You mention it to people, and they're like, "What is that?"
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I read it back in the 90s.
Yeah, so it is a niche read. I mean, you tell us, obviously, we'll know because we're in the know. But it's not one of those things that I mean,
Everybody knows.
it's a subgenre, and I'll die on that hill. It's a subgenre of sci-fi. It's its own separated thing. So even within sci-fi fans, I remember having the conversation where I mentioned the book, and they don't know who that is, and they're sci-fi fans.
Well, I will say that the Neuromancer series, because there's 4 books, I think, now, that William Gibson wrote, and William Gibson is an amazing author. The way he crafts a story, you've just got to read them. If you like cyberpunk at all, you should read William Gibson's novels. One of them, I think, was the 4th one he did in that sort of Neuromancer series. He had 3 different characters, and every chapter you jump to the next character. So there'd be stuff going on with person A, and then you get to a cliffhanger, and then you jump to the next person. You're like, but what happened to? Oh crap! And then you're rereading this person. You get involved in that character, and then you jump to the 3rd one. It's like, oh crap! And
George R. Martin does that shit.
And then you get back to the first one again. You go, oh, this guy. Oh, yeah, what's happening with him? And you think it would be annoying, but it actually multiplies your engagement in the story. Yeah. And then the point, like getting towards the climax where the 3 of the stories intersect and they come together, and you go, oh, wow. That's how they all connect.
Pure ecstasy.
And it's just one of those brain orgasm moments where your sci-fi orgasm button just gets pushed and you're just like, oh wow.
Yeah.
William Gibson, awesome author. Interesting thing was he wrote the Neuromancer series on a manual typewriter.
Yes.
Follow us on more tips on how to squirt with your brain.
They Stop killing me. I'm dead. I don't need you to finish the job. Look, it's really interesting. William Gibson. He writes this genre beginning story about stuff that's totally out there for the time, on a manual typewriter. I mean, they had Macs, the little boxy Macs at the time.
Mhm.
He could have written it on that. No, manual typewriter.
Yeah.
He didn't use electronics at all.
He
And he
refused.
wrote about the future of cybernetics. That was amazing. The I guess you call it Gapmo, really, to borrow a term from anime. But it's a huge gap.
Yeah.
Grand Canyon.
I will ever and forever consider him the father of cyberpunk. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but
Oh, yeah, I do.
he's the father of cyberpunk. So if you like cyberpunk and you haven't read any of his work, you're definitely missing out.
Oh, totally.
Neuromancer.
Huge recommendation.
Yeah. Awesome. So there was a lot of noise coming in. Is that you?
Huh?
He turned his fan on. I think.
Oh, you got your fan on?
No. It's off.
Have you got your 3D printer on?
No.
Let me test. I'm going to test it out. I just muted him and the noise is out.
Yeah, it's Gio.
Yeah.
I'm a refresh.
So, and of course, it takes a very own Captain Chaos to derail this because that's what we do in this show.
That's his job. I mean, it's in his position description. Derail the show.
Derail the show.
That's always truly yours.
Nice.
He's a little bit typecast, but you get that.
Yeah. Just a little bit, just a tiny little bit.
So here's a question for you while we're sort of motoring along. Where did Arnie get the protein when he was a prisoner in what was basically a prison camp? So I don't think they were feeding them particularly well to keep his muscles during that 18 months that he was in prison, because they were in a prison camp. What people don't often understand when you're bulked up to that extent is you've got to work really hard to maintain those muscles, or they go away, because the human body isn't designed to carry that much muscle. And the reason why is because it is fuel-wise, like human fuel is food, obviously, but it's very expensive to maintain that much muscle, because that much muscle requires more glucose, more protein, more nutrients of all types than somebody who is less bulked up. So you will see lots of bodybuilders eating 2-3 times what a normal person would eat to maintain their body, because there's just so much more meat there that they've got to maintain. Now, if you're in prison, in a prison camp that certainly looked like it wasn't serving 5-star meals a day, it's be interesting how you would maintain that muscle.
Conclusion: there were bullies that were eating somebody else's lunch.
I have a question for you. Can we look up the nutritional value of rats?
He'd need a blender. I don't know that he had access to a blender.
They cook some good rats in Philippines, I think.
Because I mean, if this is a let me call it
chicken. It's like chicken. They're very
I've got my rat smoothie. I'm okay.
Rat smoothie, no, bro.
If this is a
fried rat
world like we kind of see, you like to imagine the rats were really thick and bulky.
Thick. Tweaking rats.
I don't know. It's obviously a joke, but you do have a point. Muscles are expensive to keep. So
rat patties, man. Rat patties.
I wonder too.
Just like in Demolition Man when they go to the underworld, they got rat patties. Remember?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's actually where I was. Okay.
Delicious.
Oh, if you are watching,
you're making me hungry, Ray. You're making me hungry, Ray. I was so eat that.
Is there nutritional value in there?
Hell yeah, bro.
Didn't say so.
That's like rabbit.
Oh God. So you tasted it then?
Or cat. That's like cat, bro. I have plans of eating your cat, bro.
That's horrible.
It's gonna scratch me one more time, and then I'm gonna invite you to have some nice soup, like
my,
gumbo
my
or something.
my wife might have something to say about that, but
Oh, she's gonna try it first. She did that to me with my chicken, man. And then they tell me, "How is your chicken doing?" And I'm like, I don't know. I haven't seen it. Like, it was delicious, right? What? So I just ate my chicken and you didn't tell me. Wow.
that is horrible.
Okay, the internet has information on all things. According to NeuroStew, the nutritional value of a rat is heartier than you would think. An average rat coming in at about 300 grams contains a surprising amount of calories at 648. In addition, it contains about 63 grams of protein and 33 grams of fat.
So how many rats can you eat to bulk up then? That would be the
I could eat like 7, 8 rats then, bro.
He'd be a 10 rat a day guy, I think, Arnie.
Oh God, this is horrible.
No insights though. No insights. You gotta gut that thing.
Well, at least we're not talking Soylent Green here. So.
Yeah. No, you gotta gut that shit. It's
So
clean meat.
if you don't know what Soylent Green is, it's people.
Yeah.
That's another one that we gotta cover.
Yeah, true enough. It's a classic, 70s classic.
Oh yes.
Oh God.
So I'm going to direct, I guess I'm going to ask this question, which is a question that we normally ask on the show, but I'm going to direct it to Gio, because I'm kind of curious since he is the noob in this time, right, for this film.
Go ahead, Curious George.
Yes, I am curious. So out of this film, when you watch it today, was there a scene or a moment in the film that when you were watching it, you were like, wow?
It's the scene that I talked about when he didn't kill the big Christmas tree guy. That scene to me was like, this is a no turning point. Because that moment, people were booing, and it's not because their teammate died. It's because they wanted blood. It's like the aha moment that the movie shows you what's really going on.
Yeah.
I love the way he was trying to get Dynamo's attention. He's going, "Hey, Christmas tree! Hey, light bulb, over here!"
Oh, that was so funny.
Oh yes, that was for me. That was the scene of the movie.
Nice.
You can ask me that question. I
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, to answer that question, because you don't need to ask it again. It was the moment the little old lady was asked, "Who do you think's going to make the next kill?" And she says, "Ben Richards." And he's like, No, you can't pick him. You got to pick one of the stalkers. Go, "No, I don't have to. I can pick anybody I want."
Yeah.
I'm going to pick Ben Richards.
Yep.
That was when you could tell that the worm had turned and everybody was backing Arnie's character.
The logic that I don't understand to the betting place, everybody betting, is when everybody start betting but for Richards, who is gonna lose then? Where are the money's coming from?
Well, it sounded like they were getting ripped off pretty badly because they were betting on the stalkers and they were all dying. So I think they had a bit of a windfall before they started betting on Ben. But obviously, bet on the main character, idiots.
The betting happens. It seemed to happen underground. It seems to be happening on the streets.
Yeah, but it looked like a mess, right? Like there didn't seem an order to it. Like some people had to win and some people had to lose, right? But the way it looked like when everybody bet for Richard, like who's losing money? So like where the money's coming from if everybody's winning?
But the other thing that confused me was that when they wrote him up on the board, they gave him a 100-1, and he'd made all the kills that night. It's like 2-1. I wouldn't go 100-1, guys. You're going to lose so bad.
Yeah.
So I guess my wow moment is a little darker.
The girls dancing. That's your favorite moment.
figure that for
17-year-old Robert. Yes, the girl's dancing.
Robert's favorite moment.
left, right, left, right, left, right.
Are you ready for suffering? And you're ready for
Oh wow.
Robert's workout.
So for Admiral Happy Ending, this is a shocker, but the scene that I was like, wow, was when they went into that locker room and found all the previous running men.
Yeah.
They were
All the previous winners.
the winners, yeah. They were burned to a crisp. I kind of felt something was going on, but I couldn't put a finger on it when at the beginning of the show they were showing, oh yeah, they're living it up in Hawaii. Here's this person, and there's
The Island. Remember the movie The Island?
Yeah. And it turns out that they were all dead. And that was all a big, huge lie.
Logan's Run too.
Exactly. So it's interesting that was my pick because I typically pick something rosy color and, happy ending wise, but the movie did have a happy ending, so I'm happy. Not for those guys, but
Yeah, I think the suspension bridge effect was in full force.
So I don't know if we should we move on to the last question or
yes, we should, and then we'll be back with more episodes.
I do have one more thing before we go there. There's a quote near the end that is it Killian? Oh yeah, Killian makes the presenter for the show. He says, "It's television. It's not about people. It's about ratings. We've told them what to do for the past 50 years." But that's actually inaccurate because the first TV broadcasts were actually in the late 1920s and early 1930s. And TV became common in the US after the Second World War. And it really got going in pretty much just about every household that wasn't below the poverty line in the early 1950s.
Mhm.
Now, if you count from 1950 onwards to 2017, it's nearly 70 years, but he says 50 years. It's 50 years to 2000, but it's 70 years to 2017, 2020, sort of just rounding up.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was a bit off.
Interesting. Yeah, but it is, you have a point there too, with media as a whole. And it's actually a scary thing, especially when some of the things that we see today. Media has the potential of influencing the masses.
Oh, for sure.
And its intention is to show, especially when you're talking about the news, right? Or you go to journalism school, that the intention and part of the reason why I miss, 80s broadcasts, 70 broadcasts, is that they are supposed to show you the facts, and you, as a viewer, have to make the decision.
Yeah.
That's what news is supposed to be, either in written form or if you're watching it on TV. And that's one of the things that I missed about media as a whole. And not to say that didn't happen, because, that would be a big, huge lie. But in general, you were most likely to experience this in the 80s, 70s, I think even in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken, and part of the 2000s, gradually until
So Do you get me in a way why I feel jealous sometimes? So they'll take me back to 80s nostalgia.
Yeah. Today,
Having lived through a geo, it had its upsides and its downsides. Okay,
yeah,
80s wasn't the golden era that everybody tends to make it out to be because they only remember the good bits because they didn't want to remember the bad bits. But there was plenty of bad bits. The worst thing about the 80s, the number one worst thing, was the fear of nuclear Armageddon every single fucking day.
yes. You don't know if tomorrow will be the day you die.
Don't you think that we still live on it, or like we learn to live with that, knowing that it can still happen?
It's far less likely now than it was then, because there was there was the great divide between USSR and sort of I would say America, but there was other countries that also had nukes that were combined with American NATO and stuff, and it was there were several flashpoints where if people had made other decisions than what they'd made, we would have had nuclear Armageddon. Came close a couple of times.
Yes.
The crisis in Caribbean, Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah, the Cubics, yeah.
And that other one in Russia where they got some false data about US launches.
Yeah.
And the guy refused to pass it on because he thought it was erroneous, and he was right. And if decisions had been made at either of those 2 points that were different from what they were, we would have had nuclear Armageddon. And I'm sure there's an alternate reality out there where they got shit nuked out of them, and there may not be anybody left. So I mean, it's scary to think that we got that close even twice. And the fact that we're still here now and large sections of the world haven't been nuked is a fucking miracle. So, you look back on the 80s and you think, oh, look at all that fluffy hair and the epaulets and the sparkles and all these other things. And it's like, yeah, but everybody was scared of being nuked.
But that was already lived through the 60s and 70s too.
But not as bad as the 80s.
Yeah, the 80s was like every fucking other day.
I would think that it was fresher back in after World War II. We didn't have it happen.
Dude, I was living in Miami. How far is Miami from Cuba?
No.
Not very. Not even 100 miles.
And my fear is, in my head, I was looking at nuclear launches pointing at Miami. And every day, you imagine living like that?
It's one of those chronic fears that they just kept reporting on it. They kept prodding the wound.
Yes.
And I kind of blame the media for a lot of it. But I mean,
yes,
maybe keeping it in everybody's perception all the time was the reason why we didn't end up with a nuclear war.
Yes. Maybe that.
So I can't blame them necessarily, but it was a lot of fear. I mean, there's been fear for lots of other reasons too, but I mean, back in the 50s and 60s, they had nukes, but it wasn't enough to obliterate the planet multiple times over. By the 80s, there were so many nuclear weapons that if there was launches and counter launches, the whole planet was crisp. That's all we were going to end up with. I mean, Australia doesn't have nuclear weapons. We have one nuclear facility for making nuclear medicines, and that's it. We don't even have a nuclear reactor for power. And we expect it to be completely obliterated as well. So, it was one of those times where you thought we were all going to fucking die every single day. And I'm kind of amazed we didn't. And I'm glad we didn't. But it was just that chronic fear in the 80s that was always there. And people forgot about it because it's, in the past. It's history. But I haven't forgotten about it. It was terrible. It was depressing.
You have a really good point, because we're most likely to have something like that now, but it's not in people's minds because the media is not doing what they used to do in the 80s with putting it in people's faces all the time.
Yeah.
So I think that's the difference.
I mean, every time somebody invaded somebody else's airspace, or they shot down a spy plane, or they, it was all reported on, and it just hyped up the fear.
Okay.
When is war going to break out? It wasn't if, it was when. And I was amazed that it didn't.
Yeah.
World War III was like just around the corner for like 10 years.
Yeah, I remember those. Days.
Sorry to bring the the vibe down, but it was scary. It really
It's true
was.
information. It's true information.
Yeah. So yeah, I was going back to what I was saying is we don't see this anymore in today's media on any type of informational again, I repeat, there's also exceptions on today, just like there was exceptions on the 80s. But for the most parts, what we see as news is actually opinions.
Yes.
And it kind of bothers me, because now I feel like I am at school. I have to go and search for the information and make my decisions myself because they're not providing that like they used to.
Well, it's provided, but you have to go to multiple sources to get each side of the story. So every news service now has an affiliate of one side of the argument or the other, be it Democrats, Republicans, whichever they happen to be attached to. And I'm using Democrats and Republicans because that's the American consciousness. But each news service will either be Democrat or Republican because whoever owns it is one or the other generally, and they will angle they will, now what's the correct term is, they will spin the story to their preferences. And what people do these days is they find a news service that agrees with their point of view and they watch that and they believe that to be the truth, where it's actually what you said is an opinion.
Bias.
Truth. So yes, there is cognitive bias within all news reporting these days. Nothing gives both sides of the story anymore. You're absolutely right, Robin.
Yeah, and I honestly really miss that. I really miss, and even from the way that the information is presented. I mean, if you've seen like iconic news reporters like Walter Cronkite, their news, and I'm just pulling him just to pull a name, but the information that was provided was almost monotone on purpose. They were providing the facts in a way, and they were very careful to not make emphasis on a part of the story they find to be true, because they had bias. We all have bias. And it took a real hard professional, it took real talent to present the information in a news article in a way that they used to do, to make sure they were not making emphasis on a portion of the story that they find to lean to, right? And if you look at those news reporters, and I wish I can do an example, like on today's news, a, a, what example can I use? There was an accident, a bicycle accident on Jane Street in John, and people were there, and they said that the vehicle crossed the path, and that's where the accident happened. The other person said they were distracted on the phone. Stay tuned for more information. Notice how everything is in one tone.
Yep.
And today you would say, yeah, there was an accident, and this person was on the telephone, and that's where the accident happened. So they don't let you make your own decisions. They tell you what you should believe. So I don't know. I missed that, and I'm sure that was a poor example. But if you go back on YouTube and look at news from 70s, 80s,
Yep.
and compare it to news from today, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's almost monotone. the way that the information is presented. There's
In
no
today's news, we have actually something happening in the main avenue when a man shot another one because they were into an argument about Earth being flat or not.
If you look at examples for news from the 50s, that would be an over exaggerated example on how news was presented.
Yeah. You know what I relieved is when I play LA Noir, which was like a detective game based on the 1950s.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of these when you're playing these games.
So yeah, I feel the profession is not what it used to be. I think there was a lot more talent back in the day.
Yeah, no,
You know.
it's true what you're saying because now you see people say like, "Oh, how awful is that?" or whatever, like making their own personal input into it when they're being communicators of events, not about their opinions. So it becomes about them.
Now, I am almost about to say that it's not necessarily the talent that we see lacking. There are people out there that are they have talent for that. I think it's more to the company that they work for.
Yeah,
Because you see a lot of examples where the the company that this person works for goes so against what this person believes on that they choose to quit
yeah,
publicly. And there have been examples where newscasters just walk up on air
yep,
and just quit. So I don't think it's all, and it's not fair for me to say that talent is not there. Talent is there. I think it's just a worse battle today where you have your values, but you also have a job. So I don't
yep.
know. I'm not in the area. It's just my perception, and my perception could also be wrong.
Follow us for more conspiracies.
So I think that we might be ready, and I don't know. Maybe I need to hear from Ray in just a little bit, but I think we might be ready for the last question of the show.
Yeah, I'm good. I just had to blow my nose. You didn't need to see that.
We should because I could have done the sound effects for it.
No, I don't need to laugh while I'm blowing my nose. It just doesn't work.
Oh boy. Okay. So if you are new to the show,
TMI.
if you are new to the show, this is a segment. This is the part of the show where we ask the last question. The last question is, what was your last impression of the film? This is accounting for a combination of the first thing you watched this film and across all the many rewatches through the last time, which for us was either today or yesterday of this film. Not sure if we should let uh, Captain Chaos go first since he saw it today. He hasn't had many rewatches under his belt. So maybe we should go to him first, and then we can take a turn.
Yes, I'll be short and concise. I think that this movie is great. I'm surprised that I'd never watched it before. I think that this is a great hit of the decade. And I think that inspiration to all the things that we saw down the years, for sure. I think that, like I mentioned before, low key, you can realize that Arnold Schwarzenegger is a big hero of sci-fi big hit movies. So I mean, it's a must watch, and I'm probably gonna give it a rewatch for sure. This movie has a lot of lore hitting into it for sure.
Nice.
That's it.
Awesome. Ray, I don't know if you want me to.
Yeah, I'll go next, and I'll try and keep it short because of my voice.
Okay.
This you can see a lot of interesting 80s sci-fi sort of in the vaults, as it were, like The Predator, The Running Man, and there's a whole bunch of others. But this one follows on that line from like Escape from New York, Escape from LA, those sort of post-apocalyptic-y kind of everything's crap and the government is suppressing everybody and we've got to do something about it kind of movies. Kind of like 1984 with extra grunge. And this movie it works on a number of levels in that it has that sort of negative, sort of depressing environment that it's portrayed in, but then over the top of that, it's got the glitz and glamour of a game show. It shouldn't work, but it does. Because the script is completely nuts.
Keep them entertained. That's all that matters.
Even to the point that I think if this movie, or the director, the writer, the director of this movie didn't invent the post-credit scene, they half invented the post-credit scene. In that, if you listen to the last 2 minutes of the credits, it actually, the movie music peters out, and then they do that bit of voiceover like you normally get at the end of a game show. And I actually quoted part of that at the beginning of our show here because I thought it was iconic.
Yes.
They lean into the whole game show aesthetic so hard, they even slipped it in right at the end of the credits. And I never knew it was there until this particular watching. Yeah. And I asked these guys and they had no clue either, and I had to play it. Are you ready for playing? And you're ready for Captain Freedom's less than free.
Oh wow.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of amazing in this movie. It grabs a whole bunch of ideas from earlier movies and turns it into a game show, which and it's a blood sport as well. So I mean, it has a lot of ideas that you wouldn't think work well together, but thanks to the Arnie factor, it does. And yeah, it's full of cheese. This thing, if you're allergic to dairy, you're screwed watching this thing because it is full of cheese, but it's the most awesome, bubbly, soft yellow.
It will make a great game, right?
Oh yeah, totally. Actually, I think there was a board game for this movie. I think I do remember it. I think so. I'm going to have to Google that in a minute. But I highly recommend this movie. It is kind of one of those push pins because they didn't have the drop buttons and things that we have on map programs these days. But it's a push pin from the 80s of sort of a collaboration between total 80s. We think the future is always going to be the 80s because the 80s is the best thing ever.
Yes.
And drawing from those older dystopian movies and ideas from 1984, the George Orwell book, and sort of pulling it all together with comedy and life being cheap and sort of gladiatorial games that they used to have in ancient Rome, and it's just a mishmash of things that should not work, but they actually do. So if you haven't watched it, and by this point we've spoiled the shit out of it, so sorry, but you should watch it. And if you haven't watched it for a while, excuse me, go back and watch it again with fresh eyes of an older you and see what you think. And do watch that last 2 minutes of the credits because it is really funny.
Brought to you by Carjo.
So my last impression, and I think I repeat this in many of these type of films. It's one of those things that you forget how fun it was until you rewatch it again. And this is a movie that I have rewatched over the years since the very first time that I watched. I couldn't tell you, this is definitely not one of those films that I put in on like every year, right? Like I have some, but I don't think it's because of any particular reason
That
with
sounded like a confession. Like, Father, I have cheated.
is because this movie, obviously, I mean, we spoke about this. It was overshadowed by movies like Predator, right? And I honestly forget until I remember and then watch it again. It's one of those films that every time I remember, I watch, and then I remember how much fun it was. This is a film that it kind of shows you what sci-fi was in the 80s. It is a cult classic. It is a total sci-fi classic. Obviously, if you have not watched it by now, we spoiled this, but then again, it's okay. We had fans that wait to listen to what we have to say about a film before they watch it, so it's totally fine. But if you have not watched this film, I strongly recommend you watch it if you are a sci-fi film. This is cheese like you never seen before, and he portrays a vision of the future that at the time I thought that it was plausible because there was you don't see those today though. By the way, there was so many game shows in the 80s, and there's quite a few that I used to watch myself. I don't think that they have that many today like they had in the 80s, but because of the entertaining value and how society is going, or society was going back at the time, I thought that this was a possibility of where entertainment could have taken. I'm sure, just like Ray mentioned earlier, there is a alternate dimension where this is actually the everyday. I'm glad that is has not happened for us. But if you are a fan of sci-fi, and especially if you are a fan of 80s sci-fi, I strongly recommend you watch this film. It is incredible how they're able to get this concepts that seem to not play together, be harmoniously put together, and obviously with the icon of the 80s that is Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I strongly recommend this film. And if you have not watched it, as well as if you have watched it, reach out to us on Discord and let's talk about it. I want to see what your thoughts were. I want to see your answers to, what is your first impression? How old were you when you watched this film for the first time?
Or what captivated the most from the movie, from the whole
Yeah,
thing?
what was your wow moment of the film, and what was your last impression after the many rewatches? Now, if you have not watched this film before, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts about what you thought, which in this case would probably be what would
Your thoughts about what you thought.
your first impression of the film. So that is my last impression. Okay, so I guess we are go for the next segment, right?
Yep.
The science.
So
Okay.
before you move on, because I have a mention that I don't know if it's important enough, but I find it really fascinating, and I want to mention it, and then we can move on to your because it might be related somehow. Um, just have in mind this film is a 1987 film. 1987. Most of the people listening to us were not even born. Gio, how old were you? Just for for perspective.
I was born in '89.
So you weren't even born when this film came out.
He was a twinkle in his
87,
father's
no.
eye.
Eh?
Yeah.
And you weren't
He was
even you weren't even born even when I watched this for the first time, which is a
I
year.
was a strong swimmer back then. I am the winner. I am the sperm winner, man.
The reason why I'm mentioning this is I want to put it in perspective. This is 1987, right? We see something here that I remember, and I think it kind of caught my eye in this rewatch, which is really impressive to me. Back then, I remember, isn't it really cool when Mendez walked into her apartment? And what did she say? Lights, coffee,
Oh yeah.
all those things, right?
She had Google Home.
Voice
So
activated.
there's Google Home. There's
We
the
were
one.
talking pre-show. We were talking pre-show, and you made an example, and your Alexa went off.
No, I not Alexa. It was the other one that
Siri.
I don't dare name because if she's gonna start talking on the show.
She who it must not be named.
It's the one from Apple. The name the name that shouldn't be named.
Voldemort.
The one from Apple. I don't want to.
Wouldn't it be cool if you could rename your voice assistant to Voldemort?
Yeah.
You
Hey,
can,
Voldemort.
you can.
Google, you can name. Well, actually, as at Alexa, you can name the computer. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you can change. You can change it. There's a couple of different names, and one of them is computer. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just had to name this because it's kind of like a wow moment today. And of course, the reason why I never thought about it earlier, obviously, is because that technology wasn't available. But I remember distinctively thinking, wow, wouldn't it be cool if you can just walk to your house and you can name what you want and that thing happens, like, coffee, and you get your coffee or whatever. This is what we have today. So this film predicted home assistants. In my house, I can tell my assistant to turn a specific lights in a specific room. I can have it lock my door, unlock my door, which is, I do admit, it's very lazy of me. I can do all this from my couch, but so I have visitors coming over, and I just tell my assistant to open the door. But it is really freaky to me that
Robert is like humans and Wally, like door, Robert, door.
but it's really freaky to me that this film made in 1887 has successfully predicted home assistance today. So I
Did you say 1887?
No, I'm sorry, 1987.
1887 is more like Wild Wild West.
Yeah, pretty much. 1987. So I just find it wow. It's one of those realizations that I had today when I was watching this film.
No, good pickup. I did actually pick up on that, but then I forgot about it when I realized the other thing that this movie predicted.
Oh my God, yes.
So according to realitydefender.com, the origin of deepfakes was in efforts made in the 1990s, right? But this movie predicts deepfakes in the mid 80s. I say the mid 80s because when they were writing it and filming it is before it was released. So 85, 86. So in the mid 80s, this movie predicted deepfakes, which is basically what was happening when they mapped Richard's face onto a stunt double and then killed him to make it look like Richards had died. Did the same to Mendez. But basically that was a deepfake. And the term deepfake didn't exist until 2017. So they didn't even have a name for it.
2017. Isn't that scary?
Yeah. Which is the year this movie was set. So there you go. There's a little bit of a...
Yeah.
So yeah, so my coverage today, excuse me, I'm going to clear my throat. No, I don't need you to cover for me, Gia. Stop it. So yeah, basically,
I love his husky voice. It's sexy.
You love my husky voice.
No, no, your solo leveling voice. Your husky voice.
Oh, right. Yeah. So for those who aren't up on the know on the buzz terms, what is a deep fake? Well, what a deep fake is using artificial intelligence to create fake images, videos, or audio recordings. The term describes both the technology and the resulting bogus content. And
I thought that deep fake was when you were having intercourse and you were faking it.
No, that's not.
That's not a deep fake.
For most guys, it's a shallow fake. But
Okay.
we won't go into that.
Okay.
But yeah, so deepfake describes the technology used, which is machine learning and artificial intelligence, and the resulting bogus content, which is a portmanteau, I'm not even sure what that means, of deep learning and fake, or combining of the word. So deepfakes often transform existing source content where one person is swapped for another. It's exactly what we saw in this movie. They also create entirely original content where someone is represented doing or saying something that they did not do or say, which is kind of what they did here as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we could go into this in greater detail, but I think the point's kind of been made. If you go to techtarget.com, what is deepfake technology? Just Google that and you can find this article and have a look. There's a video talking about the basics of deepfaking and how it works and how machine learning and artificial intelligence is involved. So if you want to know more about it, there's plenty of information there online. But TechTarget What is the place where the article is available. So clearly they had no idea about machine learning or artificial intelligence as we use it today back in 1985, 86 when this was written, and yet they predicted deepfake technology.
Yeah.
I find that hugely interesting.
And
it's one of those really clear examples of sci-fi predicting something that came to be.
And you have a point there, because I mean, we always talked about this in this show, how sci-fi is a thought experiment, and this is one of those examples, are someone envisioning a future well enough that that future they predicted has come to be. There's a lot of reasoning when you are coming up with concepts and ideas, when you are a sci-fi writer, and that's one of the things that I find very awesome about someone that creates sci-fi content of any kind, because you're experimenting with things and you have put enough thought behind that idea, and you're playing around with how that idea would go. So in essence, you're kind of like a scientist and doing your thought experiments, except that is, well, thought experiments just that. It's an experiment with thought. And if you have enough research behind your experiment, you are going to come up with something very close to what could potentially be a reality. And I find that tremendously fascinating. And I think one of the reasons why I love sci-fi today.
Well, invention has always been recognizing a need and coming up with a way to fulfill that need. So, candles and oil, burning oil produces smoke and pollutes the air inside of the house at night. The light source flickers. It's not very good. Okay, so there's this guy, he's come up with this thing called electricity. What can we do to, make use of that to produce light? Oh, well, if we run it through a coil and produce resistance, the heat buildup will produce light in a vacuum. Woohoo, we have light bulbs. And therefore, the need is recognized. The current point in scientific and engineering know-how is stretched a little bit further so that you get a resulting invention that fulfills that need. Now, when you're looking at science fiction, you're looking further into the future and you're saying, what might the future look like? What might be the needs in the future that can't be met with today's technology?
Yeah.
And what could it look like in solving that need in the future? So you're not looking at something that you can see in front of you right now that's a need. You're looking at way ahead. What could the possibly, so you don't even have the need in front of you. You've got to think that up as well.
Yeah.
So these thought experiments that they get right, and there's a lot of them they get wrong, but the ones that they get right are pretty friggin' amazing in the fact that not only have they come up with a way to solve a need that they haven't seen yet, but they've worked out the need in the future, which is going to be there in the future, that we are then going to have the technology to solve that need and guess or predict or imagine a way of doing it, which is similar to what we actually come up with as the result in the future where we are now. So it's pretty amazing when these things line up, because that just means that this person has thought hard enough to be accurate enough to land pretty damn close to the target of what part of the future will look like.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So hats off to the writer of this.
Yes.
Absolutely hats off. And I'd say also hats off to the people who created the visual imagery for this movie, because I suspect part of their imagination went into it to create that mapping visualization and the replicating of Arnie's face over the stunt double and all that sort of thing. It was really well done, and it's, you know, kind of scary in how well it was done.
Yes.
You see a lot of dodgy special effects, but this was actually really well done. I was really impressed.
Awesome. Okay.
So yeah, thinking about the future. It's always good fun.
Hell yeah.
So that brings us to a close of another awesome discussion on Science Fiction Remnant. We hope you really enjoyed it. Of course, the discussion never ends if you jump into our Discord. Pretty easy to do. All you have to do is, if you don't have Discord already, go and grab the app on your device or get the program on your computer and just sign up for an account. You'll need an account before you can join Discord. And then you can either use the this Robert doing his little peekaboo. Robert is there looking after the QR code, which you can scan with your phone, and that will get you to the invite link, which will get you onto our Discord. Otherwise, the invite link is available for those who are listening to the podcast through their Podchaser in the show notes, and you can find that there and follow that to join us on Discord. We'd love to have you. We've had a few new people join recently, and it's been awesome to talk to new folks. But of course, if you haven't joined already, what are you waiting for? Come and join us on Discord and continue the conversation about this and a heap of other awesome sci-fi IPs. And of course, bring your own IP. It's all fun. We want to know what you're interested in as well. And we'd love to have a discussion with you about your favorite IP if we're not discussing it already, but we're discussing an awful lot of them. So, you know, if there's one that we haven't seen yet that you know about, all the better. Now, we have a couple of websites. The first one is sciencefictionremnant.com. That is our main portal to catch up with the podcast. It will show the latest episode and access to our back catalogue. So you can zoom back through all the episodes there and see if there's something else that you're interested in. We have been talking about science fiction for a good number of years now, so there's plenty there for you to enjoy. We also have thisissci-fi.net. That's one for the creators. So if you're a sci-fi creator, do hop on there and have a look. It's in its early stages at the moment. So if you want to be involved in the shaping of that website, you're quite welcome. Get a hold of us on Discord and tell us what you're interested in and what you'd like to see there, and we'll see about making it happen. We have a Substack. Substacks are basically informational collections, which you can either log into the Substack website and read on the regular, or you can have piped steaming hot to your email address. And Robert's been writing some really nifty ones recently about multiple realities and being a galactic citizen. So check those out on our Substack and please join our Substack to make it grow. We really appreciate that. We also have a strong group of discussions happening on Threads. Threads is a part of Instagram. It's kind of like the nice X. So jump on there. There's lots of great engagement. Be you a sci-fi lover or a creator, you can get a lot of discussion going there with other sci-fi lovers on Threads. So join us over there. It's not free to make a podcast. Robert's been covering the costs at the moment, but if you feel like dropping us a few bucks to help along with the podcast because you appreciate our content, we would really love it. So go to that link there, the Support Science Fiction Remnant with Buy Me a Coffee, and leave what you can afford to help us out with the costs. We'd be very thankful. Don't forget our hotline. You could leave us a message on 1305-563-6334. That's 1305-563-6334. You can leave us a message there anytime, day or night. And if you're willing, we will take that message and play it on a future episode in the This is Sci-Fi section of our podcast. And we'll talk around that information that you've left for us. And of course, if you want to leave a 1-star review for Chaos, that's all fine and good. He's waiting with bated breath to find out what you've got to say about him. So if you've got a 1-star review for Chaos, bring it on. Again, thank you for joining us. Check out our back catalogue for IPs that we've covered in the past that you might enjoy. You might find something new that you can check out and some nostalgia bait or something brand new. You just never know what you're going to find because we cover things old, new, young, old. Nothing's out of range. We love sci-fi and we're willing to talk about it anytime, day or night. So catch us on our Discord. Let us know what you'd like us to cover. And if you're an area expert of that particular IP, we'd love to have you on as a guest. We love having guests, getting some new ideas in and laughing along with the boys here. We're very friendly. We only bite if we're asked to. So do join us. We'd love to have you as a guest. Or if that's a little bit too much, just tune in to the next episode of Science Fiction Remnant. Bye for now.